There are a few processes that must happen and follow each other. The first one is the declaration of votes. That will happen on a day determined by the Electoral Commission. Once that happens, there must then be designation of members, of names to Parliament. In simple terms, placing or putting names to seats. Depending on the performance of a party, the IEC will then say this percentage equals this number of seats in the National Assembly. So that's designation. Once that process happens, of course, the IEC will submit to the Chief Justice, and Chief Justice's office will hand over to Parliament and the provincial legislatures. That enables us to then contact the members, make arrangements for them, because now we know who is coming to Parliament, who's got a seat in Parliament. Within 14 days from the date of declaration, there must be your first sitting of the National Assembly, and this applies to the National Assembly, to the provincial legislatures, and to the National Council of Provinces. So at that first sitting, which must happen within 14 days from the date of declaration, three things will happen. The first one will be the swearing in of all the members. All those who have been designated to the National Assembly will be sworn in, take the oath or affirmation. And that is a constitutional requirement that before you function, you must swear your allegiance to the Constitution. Once that happens, you then move to the appointment of office bearers of Parliament. In the National Assembly, this will be the Speaker and the Deputy Speaker. That session, the swearing in and the appointment of the Speaker is chaired by the Chief Justice. The appointment or election of the Deputy Speaker is chaired by the Speaker. Now, once those two office bearers are elected, your House is now constituted, fully constituted. You have members, you have presiding officers. And that is significant because at that point the House can then begin to conduct the business of the House. And that business of the House constitutionally includes the election of the President. So you then proceed to the election of the President, which usually happens in the afternoon, and we expect that to remain the same. Then President is elected, presiding officers are elected. Of course, we know that there will be inauguration. The date has been announced. In the NCOP, which will happen after the NA sitting, and which will happen after the provincial legislature sittings. The NCOP will elect the chairperson of the NCOP, will elect the deputies of the NCOP at that first sitting, but also the swearing in of members of the NCOP. And of course, the provincial legislatures will have done the same at the same time as the National Council, as the National Assembly. So all the houses constituted at national, at provincial level, then they would attend the inauguration of the President in Pretoria. Beyond that, members come back to conduct the business of Parliament. A whole range of structures must be set up. To do that, you then need the rules committees of the two houses to meet individually, initially. Why the rules committees? When you talk about the rules committees, it's not committees that exclusively and only deal with the rules, amendment of the rules. Rules committees deal with the core business of Parliament. That would include any issues with the rules, but also the structures of Parliament, like your portfolio committees, your select committees. That is a decision of the Rules Committee based on the cabinet that will have been appointed and announced by the President. Because with your portfolio committees, they mirror your portfolios of government. And of course, we know with the select committees, they are clustered. So you then establish those structures, portfolio committees and select committees. The executive will not dictate to Parliament on how to formulate the structures. Parliament on its own, in light of its own mandate, in light of its own priorities, will configure itself and its own structures to respond to its oversight mandate. But there's a whole range of other bodies where Parliament plays a role. You have the Judicial Service Commission, you have the Magistrates Commission, you have the Pan-African Parliament, you have the SADC Parliamentary Forum, and there could be various others that I'm not mentioning at the moment. But there are those structures where Parliament plays a role, and we must have names to sit on those structures, and that happens in the early days of a new Parliament. And of course, at a given point, we must then do an opening of Parliament, and maybe beyond that, you then elect your House chairpersons as well. So for the rest of the office bearers, at committee level, committees will be busy with appointment of committee chairpersons. Running at the same time would be your onboarding process. This is your induction, call it training, onboarding of members, especially new members, sharing information about the functioning of Parliament, the role of a member, the role of the structures of Parliament, the legislative process of Parliament. In terms of who conducts that onboarding exercise, it's really a collaborative effort between the administration and the political leadership, depending on the topic. I mean, if you talk about the role of a member, you would want to hear another member talk about that. How do you become effective as a member? You'd want to hear another member talk about that. If you talk about the engagement of a member with the media, you may want your communications expert to talk about that. If you talk about the legislative process, you might want a secretary to the House, or your legal people, or people who run with committees to talk about that. But that is a detail that will be dealt with once we have the political leadership of Parliament. Establishment of this Parliament. People may or may not be aware that the budget has not been passed yet, the national budget. So one of the primary responsibilities of this new Parliament as it comes into existence will be to attend to the issue of the budget, which must be passed before the end of July, or by the end of July. Parliament is ready for the new members, ready for all the processes, whether you're talking about the swearing in of the new members, whether you talk about the setting up of the structures. Parliament is ready for that.